I think I didn't do anything wrong, just sent a few harmless photos to a coworker to get my husband's attention. But instead of fighting for me, he handed me divorce papers. I guess some people can't take a joke. The house felt suffocating that Tuesday evening. Andrew sat hunched over his laptop at the kitchen table, typing away at some IT project that seemed more important than his own wife. The blue glow from his screen cast shadows across his tired face, making him look older than his 34 years. I watched him from the doorway, wearing the new black dress I'd bought specifically to catch his eye, but he hadn't even looked up when I walked in. "Dinner's ready," I announced, setting down plates with more force than necessary. "Just give me 5 more minutes, Evadne. This server migration is critical." 5 more minutes. Always 5 more minutes. I'd heard that phrase so many times over the past 6 months that it had become our marriage's unofficial motto. When was the last time Andrew had really looked at me? When had he last complimented my hair, my clothes, or even noticed when I was in the room? Our 7-year-old daughter Chloe bounced into the kitchen, her school backpack dragging behind her. "Mommy, can you help me with my math homework?" "After dinner, sweetheart." I ruffled her brown curls, so similar to Andrew's. At least someone in this family still needed me. We ate in relative silence, Andrew's phone buzzing occasionally with work notifications that he couldn't resist checking. Each ping felt like another small rejection, another reminder that I'd somehow become invisible in my own home. Later that night, after Chloe was tucked into bed, I found myself scrolling through social media on the couch while Andrew continued working. That's when I saw Riley Carter's latest post from the office happy hour I'd missed, a group photo of my coworkers laughing and raising their glasses. Riley looked particularly good in his navy button-down, his easy smile directed straight at the camera. Riley had always been a flirt. Ever since he'd joined our marketing team 6 months ago, he'd made it clear he found me attractive. Nothing inappropriate, just lingering glances during meetings, compliments on my presentations, and the occasional joke that towed the line between friendly and suggestive. I'd always brushed it off, but tonight, feeling particularly ignored, I found myself wondering what it would be like to have that kind of attention again. Without really thinking it through, I opened my camera app. The lighting in our living room was perfect, soft and warm from the table lamp. I angled the phone to capture my best side, letting the neckline of my dress show just enough to be interesting. Nothing scandalous, just a reminder that I was still a woman worth noticing. I typed out a casual message. "Missed you guys tonight. Hope the happy hour was fun, sec." My thumb hovered over the send button for a long moment. This was harmless, right? Just a friendly message to a coworker. If it happened to make Andrew a little jealous, maybe that would remind him what he had at home. I pressed send. Riley's response came within minutes. "Wish you'd been there. Looking gorgeous as always. Zorf off." A warm flutter ran through my chest, the first time I'd felt truly seen in months. I screenshotted his response before it could disappear, then quickly deleted the evidence from my phone. Andrew was still typing away, completely oblivious. The next morning at work, Riley stopped by my desk with his usual coffee and that charming grin. "Got your message last night," he said, leaning against my cubicle wall. "That was quite a photo." "Ah," I felt my cheeks warm. "Just being friendly. I like friendly." His eyes sparkled with mischief. "We should grab lunch sometime, to discuss marketing strategies." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text from Andrew. "Working late again tonight. Don't wait up." The disappointment hit me like a physical blow. Another evening alone, another night of feeling like a roommate instead of a wife. I looked up at Riley, who was still watching me with those appreciative eyes, and made a decision that would change everything. "Lunch sounds perfect," I said. That evening, Andrew came home past 9 o'clock to find me curled up on the couch in my pajamas, watching Netflix. He mumbled a tired greeting and headed straight for the shower. No kiss hello, no asking about my day, no acknowledgement that I existed beyond being the person who kept his household running. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to the photo I'd taken earlier in the bathroom mirror at work. Nothing too revealing, just me in my fitted blazer, with a playful smile. I'd been saving it, telling myself I wouldn't actually send it. But sitting there in my empty living room, listening to my husband's shower running, I felt that familiar surge of invisibility. Riley's number was already pulled up in my messages. This time, I didn't hesitate. "Thinking about that lunch date." His response was immediate. "Can't stop thinking about you, either. You're incredible, Evadne." The validation felt like a drug. When was the last time Andrew had called me incredible? When had he last made me feel desirable, wanted, alive? Evadnai? Andrew's voice from the hallway made me jump. I quickly closed the messaging app and looked up to see him standing there in his bathrobe, hair still damp. Who are you texting so late? Just my sister, I lied smoothly. She's having drama with her boyfriend again. Andrew nodded, already losing interest. I'm exhausted. Big day tomorrow. He kissed the top of my head absently and headed to bed, leaving me alone with my phone and the intoxicating feeling of being wanted by someone who actually noticed I was alive. Over the next few days, the messages with Riley became more frequent and more flirtatious. Nothing too explicit. I wasn't cheating, after all. Just harmless fun with someone who appreciated me. When Andrew asked why I was smiling at my phone during dinner, I told him it was a funny meme from work. When he noticed I was dressing up more for the office, I said I was trying to make a good impression for the upcoming performance reviews. The lies came so easily because they weren't really lies, were they? They were just omissions. Editing, protecting Andrew from unnecessary worry about something that didn't really mean anything. But even as I told myself that, I couldn't shake the memory of Chloe's voice from the night before, drifting through her bedroom door as I passed by. It's okay, Mr. Bear. Daddy's sad again, but maybe tomorrow will be better. The dinner party was Andrew's idea, which surprised me. He rarely wanted to entertain, preferring quiet evenings at home with his computer and a documentary. But when he suggested inviting his parents and my sister Faye over for Saturday night, I jumped at the chance. Maybe this meant he was finally ready to put some effort into our social life. I spent all day Saturday preparing Andrew's favorite meal, herb-crusted salmon, with roasted vegetables and homemade dinner rolls. The house looked perfect, candles flickering on the dining room table, soft jazz playing in the background. For a moment, I felt like the wife I used to be, the one who threw dinner parties and made everyone laugh. Andrew's parents, Helen and Paul, arrived first. Helen had never particularly warmed to me, but she was civil enough, always impeccably dressed and proper. Paul was quieter, more like Andrew, but kinder in his reserve. Evadne, dear. Something smells wonderful, Paul said, giving me a genuine hug. Helen offered a tight smile and handed me a bottle of wine. I hope you haven't gone to too much trouble. Before I could respond, my sister Faye swept in with her usual dramatic flair, arms full of flowers and wearing a dress that probably cost more than my monthly salary. At 35, Faye had never married, claiming she was too independent for commitment. But I sometimes wondered if she just enjoyed the freedom to be selfish. This place looks amazing, Faye exclaimed, kissing my cheek. You've really outdone yourself. Dinner started pleasantly enough. Andrew seemed more relaxed than he had in weeks, actually participating in conversation instead of checking his phone. We talked about Chloe's school play, Paul's retirement plans, and Faye's latest promotion at her marketing firm. But as the wine flowed, I found myself growing restless. The conversation felt so ordinary, so domestic. When had my life become so predictable? I caught myself thinking about Riley's messages from that afternoon, how he'd called me stunning and said he couldn't wait to see me on Monday. Earth to Evadne, Faye laughed. You're a million miles away. Sorry, just thinking about work, I said, reaching for my wine glass. Speaking of work, Helen said, with that particular tone she used when she was about to say something pointed. Andrew mentioned you've been putting in longer hours lately. I felt Andrew's eyes on me. Not really longer, just more focused. We have some exciting new projects. Must be very exciting, Helen continued, to keep you texting during family dinners. My phone, which I'd placed face down beside my plate, had been buzzing periodically throughout the meal. I'd ignored it, but apparently not subtly enough. Mom, Andrew said quietly, but Helen wasn't finished. I just think family time should be sacred, no distractions. The criticism stung, especially because she wasn't wrong. I had been distracted, thinking about Riley's messages, wondering what he was doing tonight. But instead of acknowledging that, I felt my defenses rise. I'm sorry if my work ethic offends you, Helen. Some of us have to actually earn our keep. The table went silent. Paul cleared his throat uncomfortably, and Faye shot me a warning look. Andrew's jaw tightened. Evadne, he said, his voice carefully controlled. That was uncalled for. Was it? I could hear the edge in my own voice, but couldn't seem to stop. I'm just tired of being criticized for everything I do. I work hard, I take care of this house, I raise our daughter. No one's criticizing you for that, Andrew interrupted. But you've been different lately, distracted. And now you're being rude to my mother. Different. The word hit me like a slap. How was I different? Because I was finally getting attention from someone who appreciated me. Because I wasn't content to be invisible anymore. I'm not being rude, I said, my voice rising. I'm being honest. I'm tired of walking on eggshells in my own house, worried about offending everyone with my mere existence. That's not, Andrew started, but I cut him off. When was the last time you complimented me, Andrew? When was the last time you noticed I was in the room without me having to ask you a direct question? The silence that followed was deafening. I could see the hurt in Andrew's eyes, the embarrassment as his family watched our marriage implode over dinner. But I couldn't stop myself. At least some people still see me as a woman instead of just a housekeeper who occasionally warms their bed. Evadne! Faye's voice was sharp. That's enough. All the frustration and loneliness of the past months came pouring out, and I couldn't contain it. I grabbed my phone and opened my messages, not even thinking about what I was doing. Look, I said, holding up Riley's latest message. You looked incredible today. Can't stop thinking about you. Someone still thinks I'm worth noticing. The reaction was immediate and devastating. Helen's face went white, then red. Paul stared at his plate. Faye's mouth fell open, and Andrew looked like I'd physically struck him. Who is that? He asked quietly. Reality crashed over me like cold water. What had I just done? It's just a coworker. It doesn't mean anything. You're showing us flirty messages from another man at our dinner table, Helen said, her voice shaking with anger. In front of your husband. It's not what it looks like, I said desperately. Riley's just friendly. It's harmless. Harmless. Andrew's voice was barely above a whisper. You're getting messages like that from another man, and you think it's harmless? I looked around the table at the faces staring back at me. Disappointed, angry, hurt. This wasn't how this was supposed to go. I was supposed to make Andrew jealous, make him fight for me, not humiliate him in front of his family. You're all overreacting, I said. But even I could hear how weak it sounded. It's just texting. It's not like I'm having an affair. Just texting, Andrew repeated. He stood up slowly, his napkin falling to the floor. Excuse me, I need some air. He walked out of the dining room, and a moment later I heard the front door close. The silence that followed was suffocating. Evadne, Paul said gently. Maybe you should go after him. But Helen held up a hand. Let him go. He needs time to process what his wife just did to him. I didn't do anything, I protested, but the words felt hollow even to me. You humiliated him, Helen said, her voice cold as ice. In his own home, in front of his family. You threw another man's attention in his face like a weapon. That wasn't my intention. Your intention doesn't matter, Faye interrupted. What matters is what you did, and what you did was cruel. I looked around the table at these people who were supposed to love me, support me, understand me. Instead, they were all looking at me like I was a stranger, like I was the villain in my own story. I think I should go, Helen said, standing up. Paul? They gathered their things in tense silence, while I sat frozen at the head of my perfectly set table, surrounded by the ruins of what was supposed to be a pleasant family dinner. Faye lingered after they left, helping me clear the dishes without speaking. Faye, I finally said, you understand, don't you? I was just trying to get his attention. I feel so invisible. I understand that you're unhappy, she said carefully. But this isn't the way to fix it, Evadne. This is the way to destroy everything you have. After she left, I sat alone in my pristine dining room, candles still flickering, jazz still playing softly in the background. My phone buzzed with another message from Riley. Hope you're having a good night, beautiful. For the first time, the validation felt hollow, empty. I thought about Andrew walking out into the night, about the look on his face when I'd shown him that message. I thought about Chloe upstairs, hopefully asleep and unaware that her parents' marriage was falling apart over salmon and wine. When Andrew finally came home 2 hours later, I was waiting in the living room, rehearsing my apology. But he walked right past me without a word, heading upstairs to check on Chloe. I heard him in her room for a long time, his voice soft and gentle as he tucked her in again. When he came back downstairs, he looked at me with eyes I didn't recognize, distant, guarded, like he was seeing me clearly for the first time. We need to talk, he said. But instead of sitting down, instead of fighting for us, I felt my defenses rise again. If you're going to lecture me about Riley, Riley, he said the name like it tasted bitter. Is that his name? Andrew, you're making this into something it's not. He's just a friend who pays attention to me. Maybe if you did the same, don't. His voice was sharp. Don't you dare turn this around on me. I work hard to provide for this family, and I come home to find my wife collecting compliments from other men like trophies. That's not what I'm doing. Then what are you doing, Evadne? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're having an emotional affair and using it to hurt me. The word affair hit me like a physical blow. It's not an affair. We're just texting. Show me your phone. The request was so quiet, so reasonable, that it caught me off guard. What? Show me your phone. If it's just innocent texting, show me. My heart started pounding. I thought about all the messages, the photos, the increasingly flirtatious exchanges. Nothing technically inappropriate, but that's an invasion of privacy. Andrew stared at me for a long moment, and I watched something die in his eyes. I see, he said finally. He turned and walked upstairs, leaving me alone with my secrets and the growing realization that I might have just made the biggest mistake of my life. Monday morning at the office felt different. I couldn't shake the memory of Saturday night's disaster, the way Andrew had looked at me when I'd refused to show him my phone. He'd barely spoken to me since then, communicating only about Chloe's schedule and household logistics in clipped, polite sentences that felt worse than yelling. Riley appeared at my desk around 10 with his usual coffee and smile, but something in his demeanor seemed off. Rough weekend? He asked, settling into the chair beside my desk. I forced a smile. Just family stuff. You know how it is. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about that. He glanced around the open office, then leaned closer. Some of the team mentioned you seemed upset at the happy hour last week. And your messages. I'm flattered, but I want to make sure we're on the same page here. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? I like you, Evadne. You're gorgeous and fun. And if you were single, he shrugged. But you're married, with a kid. I'm not looking to be the other man in some domestic drama. The casual way he said it, like my marriage was just an inconvenient obstacle, made me feel sick. It's not like that. I'm not asking you to be anything. We're just friends. Friends who send sexy photos and talk about how much they're thinking about each other? Riley's smile was kind but firm. Look, I'm not judging, but I've been down this road before, and it never ends well for anyone. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text from Faye. Can we meet for lunch? We need to talk. The cafe where Faye had suggested meeting was crowded with the Monday lunch rush, but she'd managed to snag a corner table away from most of the noise. She was already there when I arrived, looking uncharacteristically serious in her navy business suit. You look terrible, she said without preamble as I sat down. Thanks, that's exactly what I needed to hear today. I'm not trying to be mean, Evadne. I'm worried about you. She leaned forward, her voice dropping. What happened Saturday night? That wasn't you. The sister I know wouldn't humiliate her husband like that. I wasn't trying to humiliate him. I was trying to get his attention. By flaunting another man's interest in front of his parents? When she put it like that, it sounded so much worse. I picked at my salad, unable to meet her eyes. Things have been bad between us for months. He doesn't see me anymore, Faye. I feel like I'm disappearing. So you decided to make him jealous instead of talking to him about it? I tried talking. He's always working, always distracted. This Riley thing, it just happened. He makes me feel attractive again, appreciated. Faye was quiet for a long moment, studying my face. Are you sleeping with him? No. The denial came out louder than I intended, earning glances from nearby tables. No, it's not like that. We just text sometimes. He compliments me. It's harmless. Harmless. Faye repeated the words slowly. Evadne, I saw Andrew's face Saturday night. That man was devastated. Whatever you think you're doing, it's not harmless to him. He's overreacting. Is he? Faye pulled out her phone and showed me something that made my blood freeze. It was a screenshot of a Facebook post. A group photo from last Friday's happy hour that I'd shared on my timeline. But what I hadn't noticed when I posted it was Riley's comment underneath. You look incredible in this dress. Wish I could have gotten you alone for a proper conversation, Galler. The comment had 12 likes and several responses, including one from my coworker Sarah. Riley, and another from someone I didn't recognize. Get a room, you two. This is public, Evadne, Faye said quietly. Your coworkers, your friends, people from Andrew's work who follow you. They can all see this. I stared at the screen, feeling sick. I'd been so focused on the private messages that I hadn't been paying attention to the public ones. I didn't realize that's the problem. You're not thinking clearly. Faye put her phone away. I talked to Mom yesterday. She thinks you're having a midlife crisis. I'm 32. Then what would you call this? Because from the outside, it looks like you're sabotaging your marriage for the attention of some guy who probably does this with every married woman in your office. Her words stung because they echoed what Riley had said that morning. I thought about his casual dismissal of our connection, how quickly he'd backed away when he realized I might be taking things seriously. I don't know what I'm doing, I admitted finally. I miss feeling wanted. Andrew wants you, Faye said gently. He's just not good at showing it. But instead of working on your marriage, you're looking for validation from strangers. Riley's not a stranger. He is, though. What do you really know about him? His family, his values, what he wants from life. You know he's charming, and he compliments you, but that's not enough to build anything real on. I wanted to argue, but she was right. My relationship with Riley existed in a bubble of flirtation and fantasy. I didn't know his last name until he'd joined our team. I didn't know if he wanted kids, or what his politics were, or how he treated people when no one was watching. What should I do? I asked. End it with Riley, delete his number, keep things strictly professional, then go home and fight for your marriage instead of running away from it. That afternoon, I sat in my car in the office parking lot, staring at my phone. Riley's latest message was waiting. Lunch was interesting. Maybe we should cool things down for a while. You seem like you need to figure some things out. Even he was rejecting me now. The man I'd risked my marriage for was backing away because I was too complicated, too messy, too much work. The humiliation was overwhelming. I drove home to find Andrew's car already in the driveway, which was unusual for a Monday. Inside, I could hear him talking quietly on the phone in his office. The door was closed, but his voice carried into the hallway. I understand the retainer fee, he was saying. What I need to know is what constitutes grounds for, yes, I have documentation. My heart stopped. Documentation. He was talking to a lawyer. I crept closer to the door, straining to hear more. Screenshots, yes, and witnesses from Saturday night. My parents, her sister, I see. And what about custody arrangements? Custody. The word hit me like a physical blow. He was seriously considering divorce, and he was already thinking about taking Chloe away from me. I backed away from the door, my hands shaking. This couldn't be happening. It was just texting, just harmless flirtation. People didn't get divorced over text messages, but even as I told myself that, I couldn't forget the look on Andrew's face Saturday night. The way he'd said, I see, when I refused to show him my phone. The careful distance he'd maintained since then, like he was already protecting himself from further hurt. My phone buzzed with a message, and for a moment I hoped it was Riley, taking back his rejection. Instead, it was from a number I didn't recognize. Hey, it's Jake from accounting. Saw your Facebook post from Friday. Riley's a lucky guy. Let me know if you ever want to grab drinks. Meh. I stared at the message in horror. How many people had seen that post? How many of Andrew's colleagues were now speculating about his wife's behavior? I deleted the message and blocked the number, but the damage was already done. My private rebellion had become public humiliation, not just for me, but for Andrew. And now he was upstairs talking to lawyers about custody arrangements while I stood in our hallway, finally understanding the magnitude of what I'd set in motion. The sound of his office door opening made me jump. I pretended to be sorting through mail as he came downstairs, but he barely glanced at me. I'm picking up Chloe from school, he said. We'll grab dinner out. I can cook. We're fine. His voice was polite but final. Don't wait up. After they left, I sat alone in our quiet house, surrounded by the life I'd built, and was apparently in the process of destroying. I thought about calling Faye, or my mother, or even Riley. Anyone who might tell me this wasn't as bad as it seemed. Instead, I found myself scrolling through old photos on my phone. Pictures of Andrew and me from our early dating days, from our wedding, from Chloe's first steps. In every photo, Andrew was looking at me like I was the most important thing in his world. When had that changed? When had I stopped being enough for him? And when had he stopped being enough for me? But looking at those photos, I realized something that made my chest tight with panic. Maybe the problem wasn't that Andrew had stopped seeing me. Maybe the problem was that I'd stopped seeing him. The house felt like a powder keg waiting to explode. Andrew had been civil but distant for 3 days, speaking to me only when necessary, and spending most of his time either at work or in his office with the door closed. Chloe had started asking why Daddy seemed sad, why he wasn't eating dinner with us anymore, why Mommy kept checking her phone and sighing. I'd tried to delete Riley's number, like Faye had suggested, but I couldn't bring myself to do it, not when everything else in my life was falling apart. His messages had become less frequent since our conversation on Monday, but they were still the only bright spot in my increasingly dark days. Thursday evening, I was helping Chloe with her homework when Andrew came home earlier than usual. He stood in the kitchen doorway for a moment, watching us work through long division problems at the dining room table. "Chloe, sweetheart," he said finally, "why don't you go play in your room for a bit? Mommy and I need to talk." Something in his tone made my stomach clench. Chloe looked between us with worried eyes. She was only 7, but she wasn't stupid. She could feel the tension that had been building all week. "Are you and Mommy fighting?" she asked in a small voice. "We're just going to have a grown-up conversation," Andrew said gently. "Nothing for you to worry about." After Chloe reluctantly went upstairs, Andrew sat down across from me at the table where we'd shared thousands of meals, where we'd planned our wedding, where we'd filled out the paperwork to buy this house. The distance between us felt like an ocean. "I know you've been talking to a lawyer," I said before he could speak. He didn't look surprised that I'd overheard. "Yes. Andrew, please, can't we work this out? Go to counseling or something? Can we?" He pulled out his phone and set it on the table between us. "Because I've been doing some thinking this week, and I keep coming back to the same question. Do you want to work this out, or do you just not want to face the consequences of your choices?" "That's not fair. Show me your phone, Evadne." The request hung in the air between us. It was the same thing he'd asked Saturday night, and I'd refused then. But now, looking at his face, I realized this might be my last chance to save my marriage. "If I show you, will you delete that lawyer's number?" "That depends on what I find." My hands shook as I unlocked my phone. I could delete the worst messages, couldn't I? The photos, the most flirtatious exchanges? But as I started scrolling through my conversation with Riley, I realized there was no way to edit this story into something innocent. "I need a minute," I said, standing up. "No," Andrew's voice was firm. "No more minutes, no more delays. Either you hand me that phone right now, or I'm done with this conversation." "You're being unreasonable." "I'm being unreasonable?" He stood up too, and for the first time in our 8-year marriage, I saw real anger in his eyes. "My wife has been carrying on with another man, humiliated me in front of my family, and is now refusing to be honest about it. And I'm being unreasonable? It's not carrying on. We're just friends. Friends don't send the kind of messages you showed us Saturday night. Friends don't make their coworkers think they're having an affair. Friends don't make their husbands' colleagues gossip about his marriage." The last part hit me like a slap. "What do you mean?" "I mean, 3 different people at work have asked me about your Facebook post this week. 3 people felt sorry enough for me to mention that my wife seems to be flirting publicly with another man." His voice cracked slightly. "Do you have any idea how that feels? To have people I work with every day looking at me with pity? I hadn't thought about that. In all my focus on feeling invisible and unappreciated, I hadn't considered that my actions would reflect on Andrew professionally. The guilt was crushing, but my defenses were still up. I didn't mean for it to be public, but it was public. And it's been going on for weeks, hasn't it? The texting, the photos, the lies about working late. I haven't been lying about working late. Really." He pulled out his own phone and showed me something that made my blood freeze. It was a screenshot of my location from the Find My Friends app we'd set up years ago for safety. The timestamp showed last Tuesday at 6:30 p.m., when I'd told him I was staying late at the office. But according to the map, I'd been at the Starbucks 3 blocks away. "You were tracking me? I was worried about you. You've been acting strange for weeks, coming home with stories that didn't add up, getting defensive about your phone. I thought maybe you were in trouble, or depressed, or..." He ran his hands through his hair. "I never thought you were meeting another man." "I wasn't meeting him. I just stopped for coffee after work. Sometimes Riley stops there too, and we talked for a few minutes. That's all." "You lied to me about where you were." "I didn't lie. You told me you were at the office. You were at a coffee shop with another man. What do you call that?" I opened my mouth to argue, but no words came. He was right. I had lied. Maybe not technically, but I'd deliberately misled him about where I was and who I was with. "Evadne," he said quietly, "I need you to understand something. This isn't about jealousy, and it's not about control. This is about trust. and respect. And the fact that my wife has been living a secret life, that she's more invested in protecting than our marriage. That's not true. Then show me your phone. We stared at each other across the table, and I realized this was the moment everything would change. Either I could come clean, delete Riley's number, and try to rebuild what I'd damaged, or I could keep protecting my secrets and lose everything. I thought about the messages on my phone, the photos I'd sent, the compliments I'd collected, the fantasy relationship I'd built with a man who'd already told me he wasn't interested in anything real. Was that really worth losing my marriage over? But as I looked at Andrew's face, I saw something that scared me more than divorce: disappointment. Not anger anymore, just the quiet disappointment of a man who'd finally seen his wife clearly and didn't like what he'd found. You've already made up your mind, I said. You've already decided I'm guilty. I've decided that a marriage can't survive without honesty. And you've made it clear that you'd rather protect your relationship with Riley than repair your relationship with me. It's not a relationship. Stop. His voice was tired now, defeated. Just stop. I can't do this anymore, Evadne. I can't keep pretending that what you're doing is normal, or harmless, or something I should just accept because you're unhappy. He stood up and walked toward the stairs, then paused. I'm sleeping in the guest room tonight. Tomorrow, I'm taking Chloe to my parents' house for the weekend. When we get back, I want you to have made a decision. Either you end whatever this is with Riley completely, delete his number, block him on social media, keep things strictly professional, or I file for divorce on Monday. Andrew, wait! But he was already gone, his footsteps heavy on the stairs. A moment later, I heard Chloe's door open, and his voice, gentle and reassuring, telling her a story about brave knights and magical kingdoms, where everything always worked out in